Yeah, so Jennifer Deamud, I am the executive director of the Manufacturing Growth Alliance. We're at second stage manufacturers all across the state.
All right. Now, one of the things that your PR person approached me on was you're starting this new smart factory initiative. We can talk about that first, and then we can talk about Michigan Celebrates second if you want to do it that way. Now, I just must admit, I get 600 emails a day, so I did look through the email and I sort of skimmed it. But why don't you fill in everybody on what exactly that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So first I'll start off by saying that Michigan, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, launched an Industry 4.0 initiative in 2021. They have MMTC and Automation Alley that are supporting as statewide resources to provide leadership evaluations and technology assessments. And then the MEDC released an RFP for regional programs to support the statewide initiative. And so the Manufacturing Growth Alliance received two grants to work regionally in Southwest Michigan and then in the Upper Peninsula and Northeast.
So, smart factory, I'm assuming that's Industry 4.0 kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah, so Industry 4.0, it's very broad. I mean, we're talking about all the way from sensors on machines to capture data, to capture production numbers, all the way up to virtual reality or autonomous intelligence to work in a manufacturing facility. So a broad range of collecting, assessing data, as well as bringing in automation and autonomous intelligence. It's very broad.
So you've selected the upper part of the state. Any particular reason why? Or is the southern part got this under control, and you're just trying to help the northern part? Is that what's going on?
No, actually, the way the grants were awarded, that all regions of the state, if I recall correctly, all of them received regional programming. So again, there's statewide support through Automation Alley and MMTC. And then regionally, I knew certain areas of the state already had proposals submitted. So if there's a proposal for Southeast Michigan, I want to collaborate with that proposal. MGA does. So for the Upper Peninsula and Northeast region, they have about combined about 6.5, 7% of the manufacturers in Michigan.
Hmm.
So between the two regions, and we wanted MGA and our partners in the Upper Peninsula and Northeast region wanted to make sure that the small to medium manufacturers had access to not only the statewide resources, but also some very specific regional programs that will help them grow.
Why don't we talk a little bit more about your association? This actually is the first time I've heard of it, so bad on me, I know, but maybe the first time that a lot of other folks have heard about it as well. Why don't you kind of talk a little about that?
Yeah, so the Manufacturing Growth Alliance serves second stage manufacturers. So these are the manufacturers who have up to 100 employees and up to around 50 million in sales. They have an intent and capacity to grow. So what MGA does is we help them shore up their internal operations, whatever that may be. It could be human resources, it could be technology, it could be Industry 4.0. We help them identify where their gaps are internally, connect them to resources. And then that second phase of working with the Manufacturing Growth Alliance is, okay, now you're positioned for growth. How do we access new markets for you so that you can continue on that growth path? So it's shoring up internal and looking at external markets for growth.
Okay. And Tamara or Kathleen, you're free to at any time weigh in. Actually, you missed their first two segments where Kathleen talks about what's happening with the Michigan Council of Women in Technology, as you know, very active, trying to promote women in STEM careers. And then we have Tamara Shoemaker, who runs the Cyber Patriot program, which is very specific to cybersecurity, but with both young men and young women involved. Certainly, manufacturing huge in this state. I mean, we still are a big manufacturing state, despite some of the downturns and some of the jobs that have gone to other places. But we certainly remain the brains of the auto industry in this state. And just by evidence, I live in Ann Arbor, and they got R&D centers all around me for everybody. It seems like here. And again, we get back to. Yeah, a lot of women are in CIO positions now. Kathleen's nodding her head. And I know, Tamara, a lot of folks out there need to be able to shore up their cybersecurity because the bad guys are very good at what they do. And certainly, by the more that we automate the manufacturing process and the more that we open that up, then the more the threat is that something bad could happen, right? So anybody want to weigh in any of those issues?
Well, I had a question for Jennifer. You were talking about your client base, I would call them, but the people you serve, the second stage manufacturers. What percentage of them are in particular vertical markets? In other words, I often used to be on planes, right? And I would describe Detroit. I'm an ex-New Yorker, but I've been here 35 years, right? I describe Michigan to people as it's not just the automotive state. We have furniture, we have pizza, because everybody thought of us that way. But what are the growing verticals for manufacturing right now in terms of the clientele you're serving?
Yeah, I would
beyond automotive.
Yeah, I would certainly say the food industry in Michigan, the manufacturing industry for food is growing, continues to grow. And to your point, yeah, we certainly are a lot more than automotive. So metal fabrication is significant. Chemical manufacturing is also significant in Michigan. A lot of specific industries not related to automotive.
Yeah, cool. And I think a lot of people do have the stereotype, of us still as the auto state if they really don't know, right? But yeah, I was reading some of the stuff about the exciting stuff happening in food manufacturing, like the vertical farms. I'm sure you have some of your constituency are involved in that. So pretty cool, pretty interesting. And when you consider the natural resources that we enjoy here, it makes a lot of sense. So then the other thing I was going to ask, and Tamara might want to ask this too, is since you've got specific grants for the UP and the other part of the northern part of the state, are you working with the Michigan Technological University, MTU, right? Yeah. Are they a partner for you?
Jim Baker is a partner. I've known Jim for quite some time. He probably still does, serves on the Michigan SBDC Board of Directors, but they are absolutely a partner. Engaged.
Yeah, I would think so, because it's sort of like U of M, is part of the reason we have that brain trust in Ann Arbor has got a lot to do with the university. Well, everybody forgets we have MTU, which is pretty exciting. I mean, I have a bunch of friends who are graduates and the engineering they're doing and the concentration on manufacturing, I would think would be an ideal partnership for you. And as the other universities would be feeders as well. But
Tamara, you have any thoughts you want to share?
I'm just really excited about, any opportunities to come to Michigan, right? So part of the problem that we have with all of our I'm working on educating all of these kids and getting them through the system, which takes forever, right? It takes a long time to get them all the way through. And then when they get there, they look around for the job opportunities and they don't tend to think of the Midwest and they don't tend to think of staying here. They keep thinking, hey, I got to go out to the East Coast or I got to go to the West Coast. And so the more opportunities that we have and the more times that we can talk about these opportunities here and how things are burgeoning and growing and that kind of thing, I'm very, encouraged for that, to be able to get that message out there. I do know that the state is looking really heavily into cyber education, those kinds of concentrations, and then getting industry to kind of work with us on that and be able to sort of start to culturize these kids, right? About, hey, it's great. You love it here. You were raised here. Let's start to look at some of the corporations on some of the places that you can work.
Finish your thought, and then we'll have Jennifer.
Oh, that's okay. I'm just saying it's really, really good for us to partner, right? So to have those industries working on internships and co-ops and those kinds of things to get these kids culturized, right? I know that when we work with TACOM, they don't even look outside of the state anymore, because what ends up happening is they bring somebody in, they work for a year or two, they get some expertise, and then they move, right? So they know that you've got to try to get the kids that are here to stay here. and take up these opportunities.
Well, one way might be to do that, since in my old life, when I was a newspaper guy, I spent 3-4 years on Long Island, and now housing is just insane, and it's even worse. I also worked in California, and I worked in Seattle, and you're looking at California, your average house price just a plain old average house is well over $1 million. In Seattle, it's fast approaching. Where my daughter lives, they just put in a new housing development, nothing fancy, 2 stories, 3 bedrooms, $850,000. So that may change a few kids' minds about wanting to run off to the left and the right coast, right?
Absolutely.
The other thing that could change their mind is that we just got to the top of the list in venture capital funding. We are the #1 state in 2020 for venture capital. Now, that's a great statistic, except that we are not the #1 state, nor is the VC marketplace necessarily funding women-led and women-owned businesses to the tune that they should be, and that needs to be fixed. But the fact is, Michigan does, our venture capitalists here have been doing a lot of investment throughout the state and outside the state as well. So we both have friends in that field, Mike and Monica. We just put the research out on her site, and Amanda has it on her site, and the woman who pulls it together for the VC Association gave me a sneak peek about a month ago. And pretty exciting stuff happening. I think women need to catch up, the women-owned and women-funded companies, but that's another question, right?
Well, technology, when I go to technology meetings, and I can say this safely since I am a white male, is they're largely white males, and you don't see that many women, and you don't see that many people of color at these meetings. And so certainly we need to bring in more diversity into the STEM field, and I know you all are working really hard to do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, otherwise we're going to be stuck, right? So we keep throwing the same thing at the problem. We aren't throwing our diversity at it, and we really need that. We need women. We need diversity in our workforce in order for us to do better, right? We need that collective, just like I talked about it.
In college scholarships, this was our year for hitting 1.5 million over a 20-year period in college scholarships for women in STEM fields, going to Michigan universities only. Now, you're right, Mike. The post-university issue is always there, right?
Yep.
Somebody may be recruiting them to go to San Antonio. I wouldn't, being an ex-New Yorker, I would not move back to New York and pay those rents, nor I have a lot of my friends are out in California now. You're right. The housing situation, we have some of the best natural resources there are. Jennifer just pointed out a whole bunch of vertical industries and very exciting ones. We are #1 in venture capital funding in 2020, right? There's a lot of reasons to stay. And again, we need to be helping our women, everyone, and our women of color, And again, you ought to get Monica back on the program. Backstage Capital is doing some pretty exciting things, or they're trying their best. Right?
Well, we had her on the show about 6 weeks ago. I guess it's time to bring her back and update all that information.
And I think there's a lot to be said too about our youth. So we continue to look at our youth. I mean, I know Girl Scouts, I've been part of Girl Scouts for almost a decade, and elevating, the STEM, the uniqueness of career opportunities in STEM for young ladies. Certainly individuals who are already on that educational path, absolutely. Let's get them jobs. Let's get them, staying in Michigan. But let's encourage and cultivate innovation and STEM fields for our youth too.
Which is why we run our camps for middle and high school girls. It's why we do a program twice a year with the Girl Scouts that we, meaning MCWT, initiated, and they are tremendous partners. Again, www.mcwt.org. It's a wealth of information there, but if you start to hit it, you'll see. And the Girl Scouts are an amazing partner. I'm so glad you mentioned them. We had overlooked them for years in the early days. And then all of a sudden we turned around and said, what are we thinking? They do so much for training is the wrong word, mentoring and fostering leadership, among young women of all ages. I was a cadet all the way up through cadet. And, but doing these STEM programs with them has been super exciting. They give badges now for things like running all over the state and doing AI and robotics and all sorts of programming. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and Mike, I also want to comment too about women in manufacturing. So women make up 49% of the workforce, but only 30% of manufacturing. So when I talk to manufacturers about the need to access talent in order to fulfill orders and to grow their business, I talk to them about, what is the career path for a woman? Well, it's the same as a man. Well, what does the messaging look like to reach women to consider manufacturing as a career, whether it's skilled trade or whether it's um, educational, they have an engineering degree or, they have some sort of credentialing. Let's look at the lens of opportunity through a woman and encourage them, because I think you were saying, Tamara, I mean, diversity in all business sectors is critical for many different levels. We call it inclusive growth.
Yep.
So inclusive growth is critically important from a business perspective. So the more diverse a leadership team is, the faster that company is going to grow. That was an article by McKinsey.
So Jennifer,
McKinsey
part of
has
that,
run for over the last decade. McKinsey has run a study every year following that, and actually they also monitor stock prices for those manufacturers who are public, those who have more women and people of color and diverse people of all kinds, people of all sorts of gender identification on their boards, in their C-levels, in their middle management. Their stock, it directly correlates to stock prices because it also directly correlates to energy, new ideas, and innovation.
So then if we take inclusive growth even down to an individual level, that's where, I was just talking about women in manufacturing, diversity in manufacturing at the individual level, and then you take that up to all levels of business. And that's just economic self-sufficiency for individuals and accelerated growth for all business sectors. And of course, what I've been diving deep into is manufacturing.
so I think one of the things that would be very helpful to all the programs that are going on. So I know at the state level, I'm on a lot of state level committees, and I'm on a lot of advisory boards for K through 12 education. Westland is just now booming in the area and really working. I think, Jennifer, some of the things that would be really cool is if industry would work with the school systems, because we need to see those kids, or those kids need to see those adults in those kind of work situations, right? In my camps, I bring in, a diverse population to be instructors. I'm Kathleen, you have all women instructors, so that they see that kind of stuff. But that kind of overlap where we kind of are all working together, the industry partners are sending out their employees. A DTE sends out mountains of employees out there, and they're, from every different piece and part of their operation. They show women line people, in their gear. And what they would do if they wanted those kind of positions, or what they would do when they wanted a cybersecurity kind of position. So it really takes that industry push, right? So that they have to get involved in some of these things. So it's one of the things I talk about all the time. When I'm talking about cyber patriot and maybe giving back and getting involved, is that pay it forward thing is a really important piece. And getting kids involved in these cultures and know that these local businesses have their back. They care. They want them in their workforce, and that they're willing to put a little bit forward in order to have that happen. It's really important. So the ISDs need help. They always need people to come in and talk about careers. The counselors can't do that on their own, and they just can't cover the diversity of the kind of careers that we have out there for them. So they really need that help. I think we can make a call out to everyone who's listening to, start to go to your local ISD and volunteer to do some of this stuff in the schools. It makes a huge difference when people see it. Otherwise, most of the time, the thing that they think about when they have a career, they think of, if they don't want to be a teacher, if they don't want to be a lawyer, they don't want to be a
nurse. Nursing is another big one.
Nurse, then it's like, I don't want to get an education because I don't, they can't see it, right? It's not in their daily life. So if we become in their daily life more and get more involved, then we'll see the payoff.
Yeah, and I also think there's something to be said too about working for a corporation and working for a small business. I believe many times in our communities, whether it be the family structure or in communities, that small business makes up a huge percentage of employment in Michigan and in every state. I mean, it is the lifeblood. So talking with our youth about, hey, working for a small business, whether it's 10 employees or 100 employees, 250, that's a great career, and you can make a big difference
Yeah.
working for small business. And then that broadens their scope of, well, what can I do? And, staying in Michigan, I want to work in a Main Street community.
Or I want to start my own business, right? That entrepreneurial spirit and stuff, that's really, important to tap into too, right? So, I mean, no, those are all really, a thing is that's the point. I think we need to show them all the pathways, right? Not just the selected few and the ones that just come to the top of our mind. We need to show them all those ways, all the different kinds of things. And that's a really important, very important, Jennifer. It's a whole different community, right? A whole different culture when you're working for a small mom and pop shop that's doing what they do or corporate America, right? So there's all those, but everyone is different. So you have to make sure they know all those differences.
Absolutely.
I want to just change gears momentarily because there's another topic that Jennifer wanted to discuss. The Michigan Celebrates Small Businesses 2 months away. We are, of course, a media sponsor for that. And we wanted to I wanted you to share that information, maybe the first time people have heard of it. So I always assume that they don't know what it is. So tell them what it is, how they could get involved, and what it all means.
Absolutely. So Michigan Celebrates Small Business. We're a 501c3 that has 3 pillars. We do the Entrepreneurship Scorecard. SBAM launches a Entrepreneur Scorecard every year. The second pillar is the Awards Gala, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about, as well as that third pillar is Beyond the Award, providing services to the awardees to help accelerate their growth. But the gala, so excited. We have our 17th annual gala on July 20. We've been planning for a hybrid event, but I think we're going to be 100% in person for that gala. It'll be at the Breslin Center. And what it is, it's mainly second stage companies all across the state that have been resilient, that have been community supporters, that have been innovators, job creators. And we identify the 50 companies to watch, and we celebrate them at the gala. And then we also recognize our best small businesses, and there are 3 different categories. But altogether this year, we'll be acknowledging just under 100 small businesses, very diverse ownership in all of our regions of prosperity at the statewide gala. It's like the Academy Awards, but for small business.
And certainly, why don't you talk about the qualifications? Now, this isn't startup businesses. This is second stage businesses, and define that for folks.
Yeah, so second stage businesses, that is 6 to 99 full-time equivalent. 750,000 in sales to about 50 million in sales. They can't be a nonprofit. They have to be past the startup phase, and they have to be headquartered in Michigan. And this year, we had a very high number of nominations this year. We had 559 nominations this year, specifically for the 50 companies to watch. So out of the 559, we bring it down to the 50 that are recognized on July 20.
Wow, that must be challenging for the judges then, because I imagine a lot of these companies are pretty similar in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, they are similar. They're all on different growth paths. So, one, the company has to meet that criteria. And then we also need to go through several rounds of judging. It's round 1 judging, and then final round judging. So we eventually get there. It takes us about 3 months after the application is complete to get to the 50, but it's a process, and all the companies go through the due diligence process. So it's about 2 weeks after they're identified that they go through a thorough due diligence to verify that the business is financially secure, that they have a strong foundation to move them forward.
Is there any, when you look at the groupings, is there any grouping that's larger than another that really stands out, or are they pretty distributed?
Yeah, we look at that from both the revenue side as well as the employee side, a couple different focus areas. The majority of about 50% of the companies are between the 1 million and the 4.9 million category. And then that next tier is 750,000 to $1 million. So we have a lot of businesses that have their footing. They're on a growth path, and we just can't wait to watch them grow beyond the criteria for the 50 Companies to Watch award.
Certainly, you've been doing this a long time. There's probably companies you can point to that won this award, then went on to bigger things. I don't know if you got that handy right in front of you, but can you think of any you could name?
Gosh, that's a really good question. There's a number of businesses, and I don't have them on the top of my head, but there are many businesses that I remember while I was at the Small Business Development Center, looking back in the client record, where the resources that the MEDC provides in our state is incredible. So many businesses that I reflected back on and looked in our records, they started a business, 5 years ago. You can watch them grow, access resources up to being a 50 company to watch. This year, we have a number of amazing companies that have given back so much to the community during our COVID environment and have been very resilient that I can't wait to share and to recognize on the stage. Question in regards to industry, we track all data. So a significant number, I'll give you the top 4 business industries that are going to be acknowledged at the gala this year. Manufacturing is in there. We have so many great manufacturers across the state. Believe it or not, accommodation and food services, professional services, healthcare / social services. And I'll toss in the 5th one there, information technology.
Yeah, IT is big. Everybody, and now artificial intelligence is very big and growing rapidly. It's like it's the brains driving everything that's smart in the factories and everywhere else, right?
Yeah, you can't be a small business today and not be leveraging technology.
Oh yeah,
regardless of industry. It's accelerated for manufacturing and some other industries, but all small businesses need to be leveraging many aspects of technology, or honestly, Mike and Kathleen, and you know this, but I'll say it, they won't survive.
Right.
They will not be competitive at a local, regional, national, or global level, depending on the industry and the size of the business.
Yeah.
If there's one positive, there's many positive effects of COVID. There's so many negative effects, but there were some positive effects. And one was things that I started out in a think tank 40 years ago, and things we predicted then are finally coming true now, which is so crazy to me. That telehealth, we've had the technology for telehealth for easily 3 decades. Finally now, small and medium-sized physicians' practices, as well as the hospital systems, have to adopt it, right? And COVID pushed that. We've been talking about digitalization for easily 2 decades, in the industries I've been in and the networks that I roll around in. And the fact is, everyone, as you just pointed out, Jennifer, has been pushed now to finally review and continue to review their ability to digitalize.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff in some ways, right? I think we'll come out of this much stronger and healthier. And part of the reason is because of organizations like yours that are so supportive and celebrate this and monitor it and give them a lot of help. And it's great to hear about these 2 grants.
Yeah, so they can go to mgalliance.org. I encourage you to check out our events page, which you'll find information sessions for the regional Industry 4.0 programs, but also check out the MEDC website if you're a manufacturer interested in what's available to you regardless where you are in the state.
And then for the Michigan Celebrates event, I know you are selling tickets. Now is your chance to tell people where they can purchase those tickets.
Yeah, so you can go to michigancelebrates.org to purchase your tickets. We roll out the red carpet. It's going to be a great, significant evening for small business. We want you there. We want you to celebrate with us. We'll toast to a new year ahead post-pandemic and celebrate our job creators, our innovators in our state. So again, michigancelebrates.org, check it out, and hope to see you there.
Traditional 4-year students love Lawrence Technological University's thriving campus life, but LTU has always met non-traditional students' needs too. Lawrence Tech offers over 100 degree and certificate programs that can get adult students started or back on track. And most of our classes are conveniently offered evenings at our beautiful Southfield campus or online, so you can balance your social, family, and work life even while you power up your career. Lawrence Tech, where Blue Devils dare.